I'd like to talk about the mitzvah of the sabbatical year, the Shemitah year, because it is a very powerful concept and one that is not always fully understood, particularly as people think of it as a good agricultural practice. Once in 7 years, you rotate your crops, you leave land to be fallow, and that allows you to work the land in a more effective way, which is absolutely not what it's all about. And simple proof is that it makes no economic sense to do it the way the Torah says, which is that you leave all your lands in the entire country fallow for once in 7 years, and that doesn't seem to make economic sense. And although it's practiced by by farmers to rotate crops and also to leave land fallow, they don't do it to all their fields or all at once. So let's look at the actual text of the parsha, which is hiding where? Somewhere. Let's try that again. So there is this. There we are. Okay. So this is the mitzvah of Shemitah, which is, as you can see, if you can read the Hebrew, it's Shabbat Haaretz. It's Shabbat for the land. And this is how the description of this concept comes up in the Torah. Hashem speaks to Moshe on Mount Sinai. I'll emphasize it again, on Mount Sinai, because we'll come back to that. He says, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you enter into a land that I assigned you, obviously the Holy Land, the land shall observe a Shabbos to Hashem. And how is a Shabbos to Hashem? 6 years you may sow your field. 6 years you may prune your vineyard, gather in the field, yield, and then comes I think there's a verse missing. Then we have the no, there's a page missing. Then we have year 7 when the land is lying fallow, and during that year, the 7th year, we have the Shabbos for the land, the year of complete rest for the land, when even the aftergrowth of your harvest, or the grapes, the untrimmed vines, may not be trimmed. I think there's a verse missing, I'm sure there is. And you may eat whatever the land produces, may be eaten, yourself, your servants, your laborers, and even the animals. So that's the mitzvah of Shemitah, that we have a Shabbos for the land. And the analogy of the Shabbat for the land is very powerful in making us appreciate and understand the nature of this mitzvah. I'm going to take us a couple of verses more in the parasha because it's also kind of an allied and similar mitzvah, and that's the Jubilee, the once in 50 years. So what we do then is count 7 of these cycles, and then if you count 7 of the Shemitah cycles, you then have 49 years. And at the end of that, you then, on the 7th day, 10th day of the month, that's Yom Kippur, blow shofar throughout the land, and the consequence of that is freedom in the land. That 50th year is a sanctified year. It's release throughout the land. What happens then is that slaves go free. They return, each to their own properties. All slaves have to be released. All properties that have changed hands in the course of the previous 50 years return to their owners. And we refer to this as a Shnat HaYovel, Jubilee year for you, it's 50th year, when you don't reap the aftergrowth, harvest the untrimmed vines, because it is a Jubilee, and it's holy, and just like the sabbatical year, you can eat anything, any of the produce. I'd like to share with you some insight into this mitzvah that helps us understand at a deeper sense. Because at the end of the day, why would why would Shabbos? Why would a land need Shabbos? What's the point, of having this practice every 7 years? Yes, it allows people who are involved in farming and agriculture, and it takes away their attention. It allows them well, the expression has now become to take a sabbatical, to take time off and to look at their own growth, to grow spiritually, to study, to learn, to do mitzvahs, which are things they can't normally do. But it goes deeper than that. And this is taken from an essay which was published. This is the Sfat Emet. Sfat Emet is Rabbi Alter, Yehuda Aryeh Leib Alter. He was one of the early Rebbes of the Gur dynasty. He was born in 1842, left this world in 1905. And he's got essays on the various portions, which instead of numbering the more traditional way by giving chapter numbers, he actually numbers them with the year when those were written. And this particular one was in the year 1888, just for reference. And he explains to us our relationship with the land. So, we normally view Eretz Israel as the most special possible land, the holiest of all lands, and therefore Hashem is going to give it to his people, the Jewish people, the holiest of people, the chosen people. Therefore, we get something very special. Says he, not quite. Hashem gave us a piece of land in the world for us to realize, and for the entire world to realize, that the earth belongs to God, that the entire world belongs to God. There is no piece of real estate in the world that is more contested, that has had more wars fought, that has had more empires claim ownership over it, that has more religions who consider it to be theirs than the Holy Land. It's Eretz Israel, and everybody thinks it belongs to them. And our connection with it is forever being challenged. Already in the very first Rashi, at the beginning of the Torah, it says, Bereshit, was the Torah begin with the story of creation, to tell the world that Hashem actually created this world and granted us this piece of land. But it's not because it's the most amazing gift. It's the most amazing, most fertile land. It's the most beautiful land. Although we've developed a love, and it's a beautiful country, and because it's home, it's flourished, and we made it into one of the greenest, most fertile lands in the world, and that's very much due to our ingenuity and sheer hard work, 100%. But the main reason Hashem gave us this land is for us to show that we're clinging to it despite all the challenges. And we've been chased away, and we've come back, and we've been chased away, we've come back, and they've been exiles. And says the Sfat Emet, the Rebbe of Gur, that mitzvah of Shemitah illustrates exactly that point. Shemitah is about letting go every 7 years. So you're off the land. You're not there. It belongs to Hashem, and then you get it back. But that process of releasing it, letting go of it, is making that statement that this land does not really belong to us, except that God gave it to us. And so the cycle of letting go of it, even once in 50 years, all properties return to their original owners, kind of says we don't really have our own grip on it except by the grace and the gift of God. And let me show you this from a couple of sources. So let's go back to our Ger Rebbe, Sfat Emet. And now look again at that text I showed you earlier. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you enter a land, Asher ani notein lachem, which I am giving you. Why the use of this present tense? I am giving it to you, or I assign to you. I'm giving it to you. When really it was given to us already way back in the days of Abraham. So more descriptive and correct. See, would have been, I should not lachem, the land which I gave you. And you're coming now, you're entering it. It's a no. The land of Israel is a gift that keeps on being given. So it's in the present tense. Ani notein lachem. The expression that Rebbe uses is taken from the brachot of Jacob. So when his father blesses him, he says, "V'yitein lecha," and God will give you. Not supposed to start sentences with the conjunction, according to the rules of grammar. Even back then, one is say "V'yitein lecha," and God will give you. So Rashi comments there. He says, "He will give you and give you and give you over and over and over," and this is a relationship with the Holy Land where Hashem gives it to us, but He takes it away from us. Us observing this law of Shemitah, and then it's returned to us, and it's given to us, and the importance of actually observing that year is to show how we relinquish ownership, because it's not really ours, and that's how we own Israel. Here is how the Jubilee is described. There was a verse that I didn't include earlier on. Land may not be sold in perpetuity, for land is mine. And then these words, Gerim v'toshavim atem imadi. You are strangers resident with me. You're strangers on the land. You're residents only because I give it to you. But it's by the grace of Hashem that you have it. And you got to recognize that all the time. And then here are words that may be familiar from the morning prayer, where we talk about the covenant with Abraham, where we found his heart true to us, to you, Hashem. You made a covenant with him to give him the land, Kenat, Chitat, Amorite, Prizat, Jebusite, Girgashite, to give it to his descendant. You gave him the land, Charoti Mahabrit. You made a covenant with him, Latate, to give. The covenant is that Hashem will forever be giving us the land. These are the proof texts which Sfat Emet brings down to show that the land of Israel is a perpetual gift, but never can we at any point feel that we're there, that it's us and it's permanent. We're always going to have this here, strangers resident with me, Gerim betoshavim. We're always going to have this relationship with the land in which we're just strangers and reside there by the grace of Hashem. So this is why once in 7 years we're going to have this process of letting go of the land, leaving it fallow, not working it, and in that way demonstrating that it's God's, and then we get it again the following year. In next week's parsha, normally they combine Behar and Bechukotai, but in next week's parsha, we're going to read about terrible reading in terms of the 49 powerful consequences for not listening to Torah, sometimes referred to as the portion of the curses, but they're really some very sobering predictions of what will turn out to be Jewish history, in the passage of time. And then it talks about us losing the land. But here's how it is explained to us that we're going to go into exile. So the land will make up for its Sabbath years throughout the time that it is desolate in the land of your enemies. The land will make up for its Sabbath years. And the commentary work out a calculation by which actually those 70 years of exile correspond to years when Shemitah, when the sabbatical years were not observed while the years of the first temple, and the Jews neglected to actually observe this mitzvah. So now they're all exiled and all being schlepped away to Babylon. And the land, but this is actually being said even before they've entered the land. This is, Moshe Rabbeinu talking to them prior to the entry into the land and telling them this will happen. You don't observe the Shemitah, you don't observe the sabbatical years, then the land will rest to make up for these years. And throughout the time it is desolate, it will observe the rest that it did not observe in Shabbos years while he was dwelling upon it. And then a couple of verses later, this is repeated. The land will be forsaken of them, making up for the Shabbos years of being desolate of them, while they atone for their iniquity for the abundant reason that they rejected my rules and spurned my laws. Now, it's not, even though the calculation is made that the years of the Babylonian exile, which was 70, correspond, in fact, to the many decades, many decades when the Jews didn't keep the laws of Shemitah, it should not be seen as a tit for tat. It's not a punishment. It's not, you didn't keep it, so I'm making you make up for that which was, which maybe it isn't in a sense, but it goes deeper than that. It is essential for us to recognize in our relationship with the land. It's not ours. And if we're not going to do it in the way that Hashem prescribed, which is you work 6 years, and then for 1 year you stop and ponder and consider, this is God's ground, this is God's land, this is God's earth. You don't do that, then you need a bigger list. So it's not a tit for tat in the punishment. But you're going to be exiled from the land, and you're going to have to pine for it and long for it, and then you'll go back to it. But during that period, you'll have to do in an intense manner of consecutive years that which is far more difficult because you're exiled from the land and you're living far away. But that lesson will be taught to you, that sort of ongoing process of taking away and giving it back, taking away and giving it back. May I say that we can contextualize that in terms of what's going on now. Thank God there was a return to the Holy Land after thousands of years of exile. And it was a painful process, but it developed a love of Zion. In fact, the religious Zionist movement, when it first established itself, called itself Chovevei Zion, or those people who treasured Zion, treasured Israel. Exile created that longing for Israel, and the opportunity was given to us in 1948 for people to live there freely. We're dealing now, in 2023, 2024, with the resurgence of a challenge to our connection with the land. And we're going to fight for it all over again. In Israel, this is being referred to as, the second independence war, the second founding war of Israel. It's that process that I don't want to say what we could have done to bring about this terrible calamity in the war that's currently going on, but there's no doubt that it is reigniting in Jews in Israel and around the world a love for the land and an appreciation for the fact that it's a gift from Hashem. Because at the end of the day, when you hear chants, free Palestine from the river to the sea, and you got to explain it to yourself, it's unheard of that a nation should go back to its historical homeland after thousands of years of exile in the history and the annals of the great nations of the world. Such a process doesn't exist, that people return to a land that they claim because it used to be there a long time ago. And this is what's happened here. And this helps us to appreciate the gift of Hashem, that it's, this is a land everyone's fighting for, but that God gave it to us. The only way we can connect with that land and justify in our own minds that this is the Jewish land is because we realize that this is the land that Hashem gave to us, for us, to show our connection to Him and our love with Him. Even in all the years of exile, there was never a challenge to our right to have that land. Even in 48, when there were terrible wars, and in 67, it was, there were existential wars, but they were never about the world denying our right to this land. This is a very strange, maybe worrying, but phenomenon where the world out there is saying, do you have a right to this land? And we've got to prove to ourselves and to Hashem by our behavior that we have a connection with Hashem. So there's this phrase. We got a few minutes left. Let me contextualize Shemitah because there's this phrase that is a little bit hollow. B'yachad natzeach. If we're united, we're going to win. How does that work? What is that process of we're united, we're going to win? So I'd like to show you where the law of Shemitah is sandwiched in the Torah. So let's go back to those texts. Here is what follows: the laws of the sabbatical as well as the laws of the Jubilee. It's laws about not cheating people in business. Now, the flow is obvious. If once in 50 years, all land is going to be returned to the original owners, then you're not selling anything freehold. Everything is being sold, leasehold. And the value of a property depends on where in the cycle you are. So if you buy a property in year one, it's going to have the value of the full 100%. But if you're buying it in year two, it's now gone down by 2%. And it will do that right through because in year 50, the value of that property is much less. If you're buying it, selling it, you can only really charge for the amount of benefit they're going to have. So the flow makes sense. But basically, the laws of not cheating in business are there twice. Al tonu ish et achiv. Do not deceive one another. Don't wrong each other. And then again, that same phrase is repeated. Don't wrong one another. So the commentaries say this first one is talking about cheating in business. Taking advantage of your fellow Jew by overcharging, underpaying, depending on whatever you are. This is talking about verbal abuse. This is talking about speaking to somebody else in ways that are inappropriate, misrepresentation, and that whole range of wronging one another through the way that you talk to them, what's called ona'at dvarim. And these verses introduce to us a concept of something called ona'ah, or abuse, in business as well as in the way you talk. That's kind of an offshoot of Shemitah. What happens during the year of Shemitah? Everybody's free at the same time. That should bring about enormous social cohesion. That should bring about people being together. But the Torah says that's not enough, just that you give free time, and immediately embarks upon very practical laws that are going to help us to express that togetherness, that unity, that singleness of purpose. So that's on the one side of the sandwich. And here's the other one, very famous verse here. First verse that I quoted, Hashem spoke unto Moshe on Mount Sinai. Commentaries say, well, why mention Mount Sinai? I mean, the entire Torah was given on Mount Sinai. So why point out that this is happening on Har Sinai? This is quoted from Rashi, and he says, notice to tell us that the all commandments were given at Sinai. It's to tell us that all the specific prescriptions, minute details, everything about the sabbatical was given is true of all other mitzvahs, that everything was given at Sinai. But think of this really as the introduction to the mitzvah of Shemitah and to that process of, reconnecting with the land and appreciating why we have it. What happened at Sinai? Even before the Torah was given at Sinai. On the day the Jews arrived at Mount Sinai, we all know that the Torah describes the camping of the Jewish tribes in the singular. They all arrived, Vayichan Sham Israel Neged Har, and the Jewish people in the singular camped. And English is not very good at distinguishing between the singulars and plurals because it all sounds the same. But the Jewish people arrived there, words of the Gemara, quoted in Rashi, like one man with one heart. Total unity, not just of purpose, but of cohesion. So what happened at Har Sinai, and this is a great introduction to this mitzvah of Shemitah, which is deep down about the unity of the Jewish people and their connection with the land and Hashem, Mount Sinai. And that's a trigger for reminding us of the true organic unity that exists among us. The true Achdut Yisrael, the Yachad Menatzeach, how we can overcome not just the current, hopefully very temporary situation, but all challenges that have affected the Jewish people, starting in a way back from the beginning of the exile. And the challenges and the existential threats. We overcome those by drawing back to Mount Sinai and to that unity that forged the people together, really at the beginning, at their birth, and that continues to ensure that we can stand up to challenges. So we can see where this mitzvah Shemitah, which is about our connection with the land and appreciating the gift of Hashem, is sandwiched. On the one hand, introduction, Mount Sinai, complete, deep Jewish unity. On the other hand, the social cohesion that happens as a result of Shemitah, the unity of Am Yisrael, in the way we conduct our business and in some of the laws that follow in the parasha. So may we overcome this challenge. May we truly prove to ourselves, to the nations of the world, about our interconnectedness on all three planes. Our connectedness with Hashem, our connection with His land, and of course our connection with one another. Thank you very much.